Afternoon. My name is Diedre Gray. My pronouns are she, her, and I am so excited, so honored to have all of you in this space today. Can we take a moment just to center ourselves? Because it's been an amazing day, hasn't it? Yeah. To each one of you, as you're on what I refer to as your gender journey, thank you. Just your mere presence is an act of revolution. It's an act of evolution. And in that, we will always be here because we have always been here. Yeah. So this conversation that we're going to have is about the history of DC Trans Pride. And I wanted to be able to get some folks that started it. They were the beginners. They were the ones that organized it. They had those first conversations. They had those first intense, let's use that word, intense, meetings to try to get money and get supporters and get allies on board. And so we have three amazing panelists that are going to speak to us and tell us a little bit about their experience. Now, I had back surgery back in August, so I'm still kind of recovering. So I'm not going to stand the whole time. Is it okay if I sit a little bit? Yeah. Thank you so much. We are glad we have our ASL interpreters. We have all those that come in with differing abilities and different understandings and what have you. All of this is important. Here in 2023, we are seeing everywhere we turn the attempt to erase, to say, your identity does not matter, it's invalid, but we're pushing back. Let me say that again, because you didn't hear it. We are not going to take this mess. Whoever you are, whatever identities you carry, whatever hats you wear, all that makes you the amazing, beautiful soul and being that you are. This is a sacred space. This is a warm and welcoming space, and we love you being here. All right? All right? Okay. So we're going to go from my left to my right. We're going to start here. If you could just introduce yourself, tell us just a smidge about yourself. We'll hit the questions in a moment, but just tell us a little bit about who yourself. We're going to start with Holly Goldman.
Hi, I'm Holly Goldman. I don't even know. I'm so bad at introductions. I don't even know what to say about myself today.
Tell us where you're from and how you got here.
She, hers. I am from New York. Well, I guess I'm from here. I've been here 25 years. I'll say I'm from here. I'll just leave it there. I'm here at Trans Pride because of SaVanna Wanzer, and I will leave it there because I just think that's a good enough reason.
Wonderful. Thank you so much. Push the button up.
My name is SaVanna Wanzer, and I'm founder of Trans Pride, a community activist, and a person that carries the name and the middle name of Unstoppable.
My name is Brian Hamilton, and I'm a pastor at Westminster Presbyterian Church in Southwest, and I'm here because of Ms. Unstoppable as well.
Wonderful. Now we're getting it in place as we're having this conversation. What we wanted to do, we want to collect information. Some of you all have experienced many of the trans prides, but some of you all have history that goes even beyond when trans pride first began. And you know the history, you have lived it, you are a part of the story of all of us on that gender journey, going back to the 90s, to the 80s, to the 70s even. So what you're going to see in just a couple of moments, you're going to see somebody put up a couple of the big, butcher block paperboard, you know what I mean? And there's going to be some like little sticky tabs and some pencils. If you think of something, an event that you remember happened in 1999, because you were there, write that down on this piece of sticky paper and then just put it up on a tab. You don't have to make it just as it comes to you. Feel free to move and do that. And if you need some help, just raise your hand and somebody will come to you so you can write it down. And even if you think of it later, just come let me know. I'll make sure we collect it, okay? Okay? All right, cool beans. All right. So our first question, I'm going to pose this to SaVanna because SaVanna is my big sister, and so I'm going to put her on the spot first, so y'all get a chance to catch your breath for a second. Tell us a little bit about who was involved organizing the first Trans Pride. Talk to us a little bit about that, SaVanna.
I know Alexander, Reddy, and myself, Strong J. Kelly, who's an entertainer, Queen Patty McKinney, we call her Cookie, but her real name is Anthony Chandler. Let me see, who else? That's from my old memory. That's the only thing I can get right now.
Wonderful. Any of our other panelists, you have some people that you can remember to add to that list?
I'm even backing up, because this is when you were bringing up and thinking of the past, it's just SaVanna's mindset, thinking of it in 2007, was just our community was nothing but sorrow. The only thing we really saw in the media about us in 2007, if you're going to look up transitions in DC, you really just heard about Tyra Hunter and the horrible thing that happened back in, I think it was 97. SaVanna was looking for joy in the community, and that's the important thing to remember right now.
Right. Reverend Brian would like to say something at the beginning.
Reverend Brian, you think of any names that come back to you from that time, organizing?
Oh, boy. At Westminster, we had a really strong commitment to the LGBT community, and there was one particular really active guy was John DiNapoli, who introduced us to SaVanna. And he was very much in the community and really very much trying to stretch Westminster, which had a commitment to the LGBT community for a very long time. Westminster was the place that started Food and Friends back in the 80s. And if any of you remember what was going on in the 80s, people were trying to figure out what was going on with AIDS, how to deal with it, how to adapt to it, how to engage in that, in the midst of that crisis. It was like COVID on steroids. And those of you who are old enough to remember, it was a horrifying time. There was a lot of fear in the air. There was a lot of fear everywhere. And so we have been blessed with a lot of saints over the years who have come and participated in the witness at Westminster, and John introduced me to SaVanna, and my goodness, the rest is history. SaVanna is a force of nature, and her leadership has just been amazing.
Well, thank you. And I also want to emphasize how I met Reverend Brian and Reverend Ruth. We were looking for a spot to house Trans Pride for the first time. We done went to 3, 4, 5 places, and when I came to Westminster, and then they didn't have the pews. We had chairs and everything that we could rearrange any kind of way. And then when I went on the walkthrough, Reverend Brian was on one side of his desk, and Reverend Ruth was on the other side. And then we introduced each other, and then we talked and everything. And I said, well, I love this space. Is it all right to use it? They agreed upon it. And then leaving out the door, Reverend Ruth said, you know, this is an affirming church. You can come on and come to one service. And so John had already gave the introduction of who SaVanna was. I walked in the door. They said, oh, SaVanna, oh, SaVanna. And it was just so loving. It was that grabbed me. And then my churches, we went through around about 4 or 5 boyfriends that I cried to the pastors. We done went through pets dying, and I done cried to the pastor. We done did so much together as a family. And the most loving part of my church is when we do this segment called Passing the Peace. That's when everybody hugs each other, and it's just so loving. And that's what kept me. And I am a motor mouth, and we only got a few more minutes, so let's get to this other question.
Thank you all for sharing that. I think it's important. When we were sitting at lunch just a short while ago, I was sitting and eating, and I saw a couple of babies they were just laughing. They were running, just having an amazing time, and it brought tears to my eyes. And I said to the person I was sitting next to, that's why we're doing this. We need to understand the history and the significance and the importance of today, because there are little ones that we need their story to be a little bit different. Some of us, if our life was a movie, some of us would have a PG-13. Some of us would have a rated R. Some of us would have a triple X. And we need for the babies that are coming to hear this history, and we need to hear this history as some of us are elders, and some of us are close to elders, and some of us are just young people that got the energy to run. We need to hear this information so we can take it and not waste time repeating the same stuff, but keep moving forward, right? Right? So my next question to our panel is, can you talk about some of the barriers?
Oh my goodness.
Don't tell us every of them. We only got so long, but just tell us. And let me say this. Let me say this as a disclosure. When you start saying names, okay, all right. That was for Holly. That was for Holly.
I'm gonna say the
Okay.
name.
I won't. I'm not saying it.
Go ahead and hold the mic close so they can hear you.
Is it on? Barriers, when you were mentioning walkthroughs, I'm thinking back. Oh, I guess the name's going to get mentioned, but it's not bad. It really isn't, because everything was fine to begin with, and it's still fine. We were, I'm thinking 2009, we were doing a walkthrough. It was, you're going to figure it out, because the event was at MCC. There was a bad trans event there, where people were doing apparently some stereotypical behavior in the parking lot. There was I don't know, but we had to, we were told we had to be in our good behavior. That's ridiculous. I mean, that's absolutely ridiculous. And this is what happened in 2009. But this is where visibility matters, because we all had to show up. We all had to go to the event. We weren't going to police anybody, even though we said stuff. I mean, we did. We were sort of doing that. But look at it now. It's for the past, I'm sorry, I'm looking at the chart of what to do. In 2016, that's when Studio Theater started asking, can we do the event? So people now ask for us to come there. So that's how far we have come. So something's getting done right here. And we've taken the barriers, we just overcame them. Yeah, they were there, but it doesn't matter. We overcame the barriers, we did it, they're there, and something's always gonna happen. But together we can overcome it. And look around the room, it's still going on. This is still happening. COVID happened, we're all still here. We're all still meeting for these workshops, we're all still doing it together. And that's what matters. And the barriers aren't gonna come, let them come. Let them come, let them put them up, because we're gonna tear them down. We're gonna tear them right back down.
What almost stopped trans pride is if I gave up. In 2005, I had to meet with the chairperson at that time that was Capital Whitman Walker Health. And I went to the director and asked him, can we have a trans pride celebration? And he said, oh, we already love your community. Y'all are performers on the stage. So first I had to break down what's the difference between drag queen and gender identity and who we are. And then so I went in that office.
Just 18 years ago.
And I went in that office, and then the man said, oh, I don't think right now the community's not ready for that. And so I went another year, and the man that escorted me to the office, to the meeting, he said, remember, this is just going to be a minute conversation. Don't get too comfortable. And then he escorted me right out the office when I bidded how this is important to our community. So everything changed. We had 2 new directors that sat down, and they came to everybody that was a part of Capital Whitman Walker. It was all white gay men. And they needed lesbians. First they got the lesbians on board, and then they got people of color. And then to make sure everything went through, I became a board member at Whitman Walker. And then that's when I brought to the board of the importance. And then they said, oh, sure, that would be lovely. I'm like, finally, we got someone that's totally going to support us. And then at the first event, organized. They just let us do whatever we wanted. We wanted to ride with wild horses. It didn't matter because they said we believe in the vision. So that's how the barriers had happened. And a lot of discrimination that went on there, it still exists, especially when we go into our community. And we also, the most best thing that we had when somebody entered into one of our events, we had a transformation station. And can you imagine someone that couldn't be identified beyond that door, but could come in with people that could love on each other and learn educational facts about our life and how do we proceed to go forward, how we can work with our community, because we weren't about dancing and playing, we was about educating our community, sticking together. Now, that's the differences from the two different prides between the another pride and trans pride.
And keeping this educational, and this particular event has always stayed educational, and it's grown, and the parties have happened outside of this day's event, just like something's going to happen after this. It's always happened, just like movies were brought in. I was like the Facebook game. Fantastic. The Facebook memories came up. Bianca found the Fantastic Woman in 2018. Like there were movies on the mall, or when the Major movie came. Like you can do other events. Right. But this has always stayed so true to the original mission of the educational component. And we're having our cake and we're eating it. It's true. We can do it.
Reverend Brian, did you want to say anything? Or?
I think what I hear you say, and what I think is so important, is we're here today because of institutional change, right? And it takes people who are willing and able to push against established, entrenched institutions to bring change. Some of you folks are too young to remember a lot of this stuff, but I mean, these were some pretty heady times.
Yes.
At my particular church, we hired the first woman ordained to be a pastor in my local denomination, the Presbyterian Church USA, which is a progressive institution nationally. But Westminster was the first church to hire a woman who was ordained to that ministry. And she came with an open heart and an open mind, and that congregation, back in 1979 when she came, that congregation opened up and then went on. And when AIDS settled in, they didn't just run away from it. They tried to figure out, well, how do we engage? How do we be involved? What kind of a solution can we be? That's what brought along Food and Friends, which was modeled after God's Love We Deliver out of New York City, which is still thriving today, right? And then, at the same time, Reverend Jean McKenzie, she was very intentional about welcoming gay and lesbian folk. She understood as a woman who was a pioneer in being accepted and breaking into this established, entrenched institution. She understood that gay folk weren't welcome either, and was very, very intentional about opening the place up, opening the doors. And then another step forward, when SaVanna came and some other trans folk came, then we started having the conversation and the reality about what transgendered really means and really is. And it was all based on building relationships, about challenging one another and just saying, you know what, people are people. We are who we are. We are who God has made us to be. So if you want to accept that in the beginning, you got to accept that all the way down the line. And that's what brought SaVanna to us. And she has become a dynamic leader in our congregation. And I'm telling you, when SaVanna speaks, everybody listens. But that didn't just happen. It didn't just happen. It happened over a period of time, over a lot of people challenging a lot of entrenched ideas and a lot of forceful activists like SaVanna, like George Kerr, who's here today, really making themselves known and just not letting up, not taking no for an answer. You got to keep pushing. And some of you younger folk, you know, I don't know where the world is going now. I mean, it's rough out here. You know what it is. But it's been rough for a good long time. But you got to keep moving. You got to keep going.
Before we get to our last couple of questions, I just want to offer something to this amazing group of people. You all, beautiful, beautiful souls. I see wonderful smiles. I see eyes over masks. I see just warmth and love around. I want to offer for us to take just 13 seconds and just feel the energy in this room. Because I want you to take it with you when you leave here, because there's going to be some mess outside, right? We know that, right? But if we can just sit in this, we can just bathe in this for just a few seconds. I just want everybody to get charged up, like your phone. Just get charged up. Let's get to 100 real quick. Do a quick charge. And just first take in a big breath. Just breathe in. And just exhale. And one more time, just take it in. And let it out. And when we leave this space, when we leave this library, when you go out into those streets, take this energy with you so that that foolishness that's going to meet you at the street corner, it's going to meet you when you get on the bus, it's going to meet you on the train, it's going to meet you when you get home. You're already ready for it. Because we got nothing but love in this space. Is that all right? I love it. I love it. So just a couple more questions because we know our time is running short. I wonder if the panelists could take a few moments and just talk about some of the lessons learned. We have some activists that are budding, sitting out here, they're watching, they're taking notes as they're moving throughout all that's going on through this weekend. If you all could just maybe share some of the lessons that you had to bump your head on to get so that they can be able to navigate a little bit differently, a little bit better when it comes up for them. And we can just go, just right down the line, just as you feel something, just share some of those lessons, one or two.
Don't let cisgender people take over a conversation. Stand up for your, like a whole list? Like the list? Oh, then I gave the one. Okay. I mean, I have more. But I did make a list. I can share it
Holly's
later.
prepared. I love it. We'll circle back if we got it. SaVanna, any lessons learned?
A lesson learned is never lose control. And what I mean by never losing control is, for an example, I like putting things in the community and ran by other people, because imagine if every trans pride was only ran by SaVanna. That would be a boring, terrible event. So that's why we get other community members to take lead. And then when I mean don't lose control is, for what you stand for is out the window. The name that you represent, out the window. Your recognition, out the window. And not trying to be cute or anything, but I've seen programs where I was all the way at the bottom. I told the child, honey, all the struggles I get, I should be above the executive director. You know, because I earned the respect part of it, and I earned that open doors for other people so they can create their vision. But never, ever let it go. And then when I had my 501c3, I went to research trans pride because I wanted to copyright it and whatever, you know, the steps of legalizing it. Somebody else had went before me and put it in their name. Now that's hurting. The doors that you done knocked down, the people that you had to fight to get permission, and somebody else come behind you and take credit. But I'm the one right here to tell we ain't gonna forget our history. Because number one, I've lost friends by putting them back in check. Oh no, it was like this. And then they try to paint another part of history, but I'm not gonna allow it. I am not going to allow it. So that's the steps of what the question was. So.
What I've learned over my lifetime is that social change is hard, and it takes time, and it never really settles in on an ideological level. You know what I mean? I mean, this is not about high-level issues. This is not about philosophy. This is not about public policy or any of that stuff. It's about relationships. It's about love. And, you know, we can talk about all the high-minded stuff that we want to, but it's not until we see one another as people and look real deep inside each other, that's where the bonds really get established that help us to get over ourselves and out of our boxes and into a whole new world where we're willing to entertain relationships and realities that we never could before. It's with people really meet people and really know and see people on the inside. And you know, like I said, I'm in awe of SaVanna because she leads with her heart. She leads with love. And that's what it takes to break people down. You know, to break down all that resistance that comes from cold-hearted folk. They're not necessarily really bad people. Some of them are. But most aren't. Most can be redeemed. And we all got to hold on to that possibility that everybody can be redeemed. And I've seen this woman put that into practice. And I thank God for it.
Thank you. Thank all the people that believe.
I love it. Thank you all so much for that. We're almost at our last question, but we talked earlier, we mentioned that some of you all have memories. You have lived experiences over the years, 10, 20, 30 plus years from community. And so if you have something that you'd like to share, remember we talked about we'd have little sticky notes, just raise your hand and we have somebody that's gonna, come around. You can just write it down and we'll collect them, okay? But so if you got something, just put your hand out. She's watching, so she'll just come up to you as we move into our last question or two. I wanted to comment and make sure to say that this moment right here, these are three of the original folks that created what we're experiencing today. They sat, they planned. Reverend Brian is the pastor of Westminster, where the first Trans Pride was held. SaVanna and Holly organizes SaVanna. This is basically her brainchild. This was birthed out of her spirit. And there are so many others that were there and have been there from those days that are not here with us now. And so when I was speaking with Holly, she had mentioned that she had some names. She wanted to speak those names. And so I want to be sure that for those who may not have ever heard of these people, we are standing on their shoulders. If you go into certain space, they talk about the great cloud of witnesses. They are part of that great cloud that is watching over us and what we do today. So before we get to our last question, I want to make sure I gave that space for Holly to speak those names of those people that have left us that were integral parts of the beginning of Trans Pride.
We lost, back in 2013, I don't know if everybody remembers, Roberta Gills, Bobby Gills passed away back in 2013, one of our original volunteers who meant so much to the community. We also lost our guest speaker from 2013, Cody Leon, and we lost one of our guest speakers, Justin Schiffler, who had written, I have his book at home and I do not remember the title of it, but we did lose two of our speakers as well.
And for each of us that's here in this moment, we know people that were here yesterday and they're gone today. It's important for us to remember them. It's important for us to hold on to their memory, to the lessons learned. And so I just want to give just 10 seconds. This wasn't even on the program. It feels in my spirit I need to do this. I just want to give the space, hold the space for you to just speak their name right here where we are. We're just going to take about 10 seconds. Just speak the name of those people that have been important to you in your journey. Go ahead, just speak them.
Margaretta Lee Wanzer.
Giselle Hilton.
Norman Brown.
even as you go throughout the rest of the day, when these people come to your thoughts that have been important in your journey, when these moments come to your thought, just stop and honor that, because that's what gives us the strength to keep going. We have to know the history. We have to hear the struggle. We have to remember where we were at, because if we don't know where we've come from, we're doomed to repeat those same mistakes. So as we move into our last question for today, now I'm going to throw two questions. We're going to do two. The first question I want to ask, what is a happy memory? That's where I want to go. What is a happy memory that each of you all have had in your time with Trans Pride? Something that just, when you think about it now, it causes you to smile. It could be a person, place, or a thing. But what's a happy memory that you have from your experiences at Trans Pride?
One happy memory of mine is just going to the Supreme Court and talking to people, me and a list of other activists, Latinx, African American, Indigenous, Caucasian, and everything. And this, we weren't protesting in front of the building. We was invited inside of the building. And in this document, which you can research in the SaVanna Wanzer court, overlook the ones of me being arrested, but go to the one that says the Supreme Court. And inside of, this was done in 2005, we weren't really fighting for different laws and everything, but it was just published, and it was in the Library of Congress and archives. And so it was just published from 2005 to now. And on the overall part, on the second page, says, we don't want any laws changed. We just want to be treated respectfully in a society. Now that is powerful right there. And that changed activism, because right there, that moment right there, our hearts got bigger than big. And that's what led us to even be harder and push for more. And a group of us, not just SaVanna. It's a lot of people had memories of SaVanna, but look at the people that led to SaVanna, our early buds. And when we talk about mental health with transgender lifestyle, we can't forget Thomas over here. Well, I'm not gonna mention no last name to break anyone's anonymity. So it's a lot of people up here that's a newer generation. I'm an old hen. So that's my memory.
I think the thing for me is it just, I don't know, maybe I'm just real old, but 25 years ago, this wasn't happening. I mean, I hope you all appreciate how much the world has changed. And when I see older folk, older friends, older members in the circles that I run in, just embrace the trans reality as obviously to be included. It's amazing. It's amazing that God has been at work in the world and brought a whole lot of people around. I know there's a whole lot of people still out there, but man, we're in a different day. You young folks, man, you lucky. You never went through it, but SaVanna did, right? We're in a good place.
What's the question? About Trans Pride, right? Oh, on Trans Pride itself, I've been literally looking at memories all week on Facebook, like getting this together. I have to say it was probably the 2013 Trans Pride itself. Just was a great year. Looking back at the pictures, there was a lot of personal growth that happened. That was the year I met Bianca. She came with Kaiser, just not even as a volunteer. I think she just was there with Kaiser. My girlfriend Cody was the speaker that day. I'd lost her a couple months later. That was a significant thing for me. That was so many. That was Bobby's last year with us. But so many there were so many volunteers that started that year with us that are still volunteering with us. So many workshops started that year that we're still doing. I mean, we can do workshops on insurance every year. There's something changing every 10 minutes. We can do them once a month. There's so many things that repeat. There's so much like started happening that year that we're still seeing that it was. I literally am getting warm, fuzzy feelings sitting, and I'm looking out, and I'm actually seeing faces that were there smiling back. So I think you're getting them back. And if you have Facebook memories, look back. It was at NCC, and it was a really good year. And we had Chipotle for lunch, and that was like we were really excited because it was one of the first years we did a catering order on our own, and it was and I demanded that we had free food. They were trying to charge for food, and I was like, And that was the first year we started making money, too. And that was when it was like, you're not taking our money. That's our pride money. And we put our trans pride money in a little mental box to make sure we could spend it the following year and have a bigger pride, which is what we did.
Wonderful. Thank you all so much. Can we give them a round of applause, please? Of course, we want to acknowledge Bianca Ray as a part of Trans Pride. I want to take a moment because this panel.
10 years today.
Is it 10 years today?
For Bianca, it's going to be 10 years.
On,
I wrote it down.
Yes.
It's her 10-year anniversary.
Come on
Yeah,
now.
it's 10 years today.
Bianca, are you in the
down.
house?
See?
Is Bianca running around somewhere? Bianca's out running around being fabulous.
I mean, it's technically 9, but I'm going to say it's 10. I decided 10.
But I do want to acknowledge this panel, this particular workshop is sponsored by the Rainbow History Project. Vincent Slatt is in the room. I see him sitting here. Rainbow History Project. Please go to their website as they are documenting all of our communities within the rainbow colors. Please go and see the information. And thank you all for coming out. Did you learn something? Did you get something out of this? That is so wonderful. That's what it's all about. Once again, if you have some memories, some thoughts, please come down here to our wonderful volunteer Kat, who will have some little sticky tabs. You can just write it down. Remember what it was. Some of y'all, you might remember last week, and some of y'all might remember 30 years ago. It doesn't matter. We want to collect it all. But thank you all so much, and we're going to wrap. Is there anything else we need to do? All right. Thank you all. Have a great afternoon.